You don't see Trump playing chess.
Welcome to Vine News CEO and Founder Interviews. Today we have the pleasure to be here with Miguel Reynolds Brandão. Miguel, how are you?
I'm very good. You?
Really well, thank you. So I know you're the CEO and founder of Corkbrick Europe, and you've been having a lot of discussion around sustainability. So tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, I'm essentially an entrepreneur. I started my first company very early in my 20. And at the beginning I was in IT, so developing software, and because it was cheap and easy to start. And after many years, I've been involved in several companies, but always associated especially with IT and with strategy, because that is I did first engineering degree, and then I did management, and to escape the army I kept studying until I was 33 because I had my own companies, and I could stay out of the army if
you were building some companies, creating one, and studying at the same time.
Yes, always, yeah. But always in this area. More recently, I wrote this book that I mentioned, The Sustainable Organization, a new paradigm for a fairer society. The name said it all. And the objective is essentially to try to help people realize that it's different to use your talent to do something or to do something sustainable. It's completely different to do some money or to create economic value. And my idea was to create an easy algorithm that allows people to understand the difference between the two. And anybody can understand, and anybody can understand with objectivity and transparency.
Let's go a little bit deep on that algorithm. What is it about?
Essentially, it's a kind of a tool based on the profit and loss, like return on investment, but it gives you a wider perspective. It gives you some leads of how sustainable this organization or this company can be. And which means that anything that has a high SORG, that's the name of the algorithm, anything that has a high SORG, it has a high return on investment, but the opposite is not true. So, and this is a big difference. So I think that, as I was speaking before, if we are lucky to be here and to be smart and free, let's use our capabilities, let's use our talent in creating something that is fun for us, for the people around us, and if we can, to affect other people in the world. And the nice thing about it, and what I've been realizing, discussing with other people, is that sometimes it's just a question of, sending the message at the right time, especially at the startup stage, because again, you spend the same amount of effort and talent to do a useless app or to do something that can be useful. It may take some more time to generate money, but it is generating economic value. And obviously, if you generate economic value, at the end, it's highly profitable and it's sustainable, which is completely different if you just have an app that makes people lose the most important thing that you have in your life, which is your time. And there are a lot of people that you can say, well, they choose to do that. Well, they choose because it's easy. Probably if they have other options, they could use their time in a useful manner. Because as I was saying in the beginning, we are very lucky. We are among probably less than 1% of the population in the world that are lucky to live in a peaceful country, being healthy, being able to have a good family to support. So those are all gifts that we didn't choose. So I think, and what I'm trying to do is to try to explain people or share with people that there is much more than money. And by the way, if you think in building things, if you think in creating economic value at the end, you even make some money, enough to be happy, but you are creating a better world. And if you have children, and if you plan to have children, grandchildren, they will be proud of you. Otherwise, they will, call a lot of names in 200 or 300 years. I'm sure that a lot of the new generations will say, especially to ours, that we were completely stupid That's the word. Because my parent generation, they were not aware. They still had that myth that technology and the man could do everything and man could break nature. And we are the first generation in history that since we were very, even children and teenagers and young adults, we knew all that was happening. We knew that fossil fuel economy was completely unsustainable. We knew that is the most subsidized industry in the world. And even so, we are using it, we are following this pattern and compromising the future of others. And sustainability is nothing more than just to make sure that whatever you do today, you don't compromise the happiness of people tomorrow.
So you're making a link there between sustainability and legacy. Is that
Sure.
the case?
Yeah. Sure. And that is very important because that is the only good aspect about the feudal times, where the perspective was cross-generational, and we need to reborn that perspective. It's not only us; the world don't end in our generation. So we can enjoy our lives, use as much as we can, but make sure that whatever we do will not compromise the possibility of our children and grandchildren to do the same. As simple as that. If we focus on this, and if you do a simple test when you are creating a business and you are talking to business people, if you are simple test and check, the business that I'm creating is a contributor to peace in the world. Some people will say, well, this guy is crazy, start laughing. Peace, what is it? Well, if you don't have peace, you don't have anything. Is it contributing to health of people in the world? Because if you are not healthy, you cannot do anything. Is it contributing to a better ecological environment that we can live? And only later on we can think about, is it a contribution to development in having fun or learning or whatever we want to do
well-being.
in well-being. And if we forget these 4 pillars, and
nothing else makes sense, right?
And you never heard in university, even if you do an MBA, you tell me, I've been in Stanford, and I never heard about this. When you start a business, there are a lot of canvas and a lot of things, a lot of crazy tools, fantastic ones, by the way, but you forget the essentials. So you start building something without the basics, and even if what you do don't contribute to all the 4 aspects that I mentioned, at least it should contribute to one. So whatever we do, let's suppose that when we are walking, we think about a new business to be created, and this new business will be, to empower peace in the world. Because if you empower peace, then people can live. If people can live, they can collaborate. If they can collaborate, they can share talents. If they can share talents, they can create economic value. That's the point. So it's not so naive or so apparently utopic. It's reality, and it's not utopic at all.
So you're right at the peak of the new economy, or at least it seems so. You have the sharing economy, the gig economy. How do you see the relation there between that and sustainability? How important is that?
I think that we like to, and again, especially in the last 2 generations, to talk about jargon, a lot of jargons and a lot of fancy words.
Like buzzwords.
Buzzwords, forget it. What we need to do is to make sure that whatever we do in our economy, we really create economic value. If we do this, doesn't matter what kind of economy we are talking about, So again, I think the focus should go back to the essentials. Because if you don't have the essentials, it's like building a house without infrastructure. You can do a fantastic house here, but if the structure is not enough, it will fall apart, like it is falling apart nowadays. Because people spend a lot of time talking about sharing economy. Well, if you think abstractly about sharing economy, theoretically it looks nice, but it's a kind of a back to the feudal times, which means, because now people say that it's very cool that you share everything. But there is always someone that is owning. And the problem is that the owners are becoming fewer and fewer and fewer. So if you look back in time, it's not new. It's going back to the feudal times, where you have the landlord and all the other were using the land, working and paying a sharing economy, but in reality they were a kind of slaves. So depending on the levels, that's what we are aiming to. So I think that, okay, if it is sharing, let's do sharing for all. Whatever is the game, if it is for all, I'm okay. It's like chess, you know. A chess game is a very easy game. If you think, basically, it's just a 8 by 8, I think 8 by 8 square. So you have 9 different types of movements of pieces, but with such a simple game, you can do enormous amount of strategies.
Yeah.
And one thing, it's impossible to cheat. Try to cheat on chess. It's impossible. But if you take poker, for instance, poker, if you are you win if you are a good liar, because you can do bluff, right? You win if you have more money, because I cannot pay to see your game. And you win if you are a good cheater. That's why you see so many in Western movies, you know, cards marked, extra cards and things like that. And that's
cards on the sleeve.
Yeah, that's what we need to change. We need to move from what I say, a poker or a game. Think about game in human interaction. A poker game society and economy, to a chess game or a checkers game or a Go game, because those you have many games that by definition it's impossible to cheat, and that's why you never see. I like to split the world in sharks and dolphins. Obviously, sharks are unsustainable, and they are sharks. They are ugly and they try to swallow, beat you, and eat you. But at the end of the day, they will be always eaten by some bigger shark. And the dolphins are people that like to collaborate. They look at the sustainable world, and the sharks don't like games like chess. You don't see a shark, you don't see Trump playing chess, right? You don't see a shark, you don't see someone that they may even play at their spare time, let's say, some of them, the clever ones. Probably Putin does, because the Russians play a lot of chess, but they don't play chess in their business decisions, in their relationship decisions, and that's what we need to do. So when you ask me about what about this and that, I'm okay with any game that we create, as long as the rules for you are the rules for me. Not because you bring a blue shirt, you have different rules, and I have a pink shirt. You know, and that's the problem of the world. And you see, and in a world like this, you don't need so many intermediaries to define if this is blue and if this is red. Because when you create different rules, you always open a big space for arbitration. And when you have space for arbitration, even in an honest way, you always open the door to biased analysis. And when you have that, you open the door to another thing, which is corruption.
But my question is, if we're going forward, if we have this society that is more pervasive in terms of technology and all things going on, is the paradigm shifting into a more dolphin kind of society instead of a shark one?
I hope so. And even yesterday, I was watching an interview of that small girl, Greta, from the climate change, and again, she's a fantastic example of a lot of things, because I didn't know she has Asperger, so a kind of autism, and you'd say that someone with those characteristics could not do something like she's doing, but in reality, she's leveraging from that factor, which is the capability to focus for a long time and exploring a subject to the exhaustion. And she was saying, you know, one of the good things I have, and it's part of my condition, is that I can read about a subject for 12 hours in a row and I don't get tired.
That's an advantage.
And that's an advantage. So what is an advantage for most people, she's using as an advantage. And she's very sensible to the climate and all the kind of things. So in my point of view, this is a very good example of how you can use your talents, that some talents are completely ignored by the society, like the kind of talents that is a result of her own clinical situation, let's say. But even in that case, you can leverage from it, you know? And that's what we need to do. If we do this, and if we look at we as human beings, as economic beings, that we can, and how we become economic, if I do something that is useful for you, or if you do something that is useful for me, as simple as that. And if we rely on this, instead of having these sharks around, always in the middle, because if you pay attention, the sharks are always in the middle, creating gates and became gatekeepers, so you need to pay move on,
to have access to it.
To have access. And I really believe that we are moving to a different world. And when you watch this girl, that is a complete surprise, because it's the first time that you see someone at that early age being so consistent against everybody, including her own family. Even the own family, they were not supporting her originally. But even so, she had this vision, and she's consistent in making the movement. So even if she stops doing whatever she's doing now, the impact that she has is outstanding. And by the way, I think that will be a new kind of a strike or something Friday or next Friday. And so I'm hopeful. And I really believe that in the world there are many more dolphins than sharks. The problem is the sharks control the status quo and the media. And they create this sense of fear, because if you have fear about
you cannot
something,
thrive, right?
You don't progress, and you become defensive, and you point the finger, and that's what you see nowadays. Because even if you look in history, if people know a little bit about history, we never had, especially in Europe, such a long period of peace. And even in the 70s, there were more terrorist attacks in Europe, 70s and 80s, people forget, than it is today. You had IRA, you have the Rouge Brigades and things like that. So many more insecurities, and now the press create this sense, like some televisions, that a dog just fall from the 5th floor, and it's
a fear paradigm.
Exactly, because the thing is, it's much more easy to engage people through fear, like all the big warriors ending with Hitler does, or now what Trump is trying to do, than to inspire people by the heart, like Gandhi or even Mandela or Jesus Christ.
It's much harder work, right?
It is, because you need to have vision, you need to be consistent, and you need to be creating something that is really meaningful to the other people. So, but unfortunately, the media follow the trap, because it's not by accident, because if you follow the money, if you see who owns what, you realize why the media go in that news and doesn't go in that news, with very few exceptions that are disappearing all the time. So I think that what we need to do is to change the rules of the game, to create the rules of the game that is, whatever they are, they should be transparent, objective, and the same for all. And then we can all be different, because we can play the chess different ways, but the chess is always the same. So as long as we create a simple game, then obviously we avoid a lot of conflicts. You completely break all the possibilities for corruption, because if the game is transparent, it's impossible for the corruption to be effective. And now it's very easy, because if you use the technology wisely, like blockchain, for instance, you are from IT, you know this. Blockchain, the only thing that it has that is absolutely unique is that for the first time you have the possibility to have a digital asset that is not possible to copy. That's the only thing.
That's where I wanted to go there. Yeah. So where can technology or anything else can help us to solve that problem?
Two ways. First, most people use this as instruments of enslavement instead of instruments of freedom, because you can use it to reach everyone in the world, like we connected, for instance. It's a very good example. But most people, unfortunately, they tend to go to the easy way and get used to follow whatever they are, because it's easy, you know. So if we use this as this and all the ICT to connect people, you need to connect for what? To create things, because that's why human beings start gathering in villages, in groups, and then in cities, is to collaborate, because if we are working together,
culture, yeah,
we can do things. So if you use the tools to engage and to attract people, like some groups are doing, and if you use, for instance, a technology that can really change the world, which is a blockchain well used, not like you see a lot of examples, transforming a very good technology in another instrument of speculation. And people think that everything that is blockchain is fantastic. No, it's just a tool. And then depending on again the game that you are creating. So blockchain for me, it's great Why? Because for the first time you have an instrument that is even more secure than the typical scriptures or whatever that we do to register our assets or the transactions or the relationships between human beings. So it's impossible to change a document, and so it's impossible to change an agreement. That's what this blockchain is about, nothing else.
It's the thing of the rules that you talked about.
Exactly. So imagine that you use blockchain to create a chess-like game to manage our organizations, manage our companies, manage our countries. So then people will be easily accountable for what they are doing. And if they are easily accountable, obviously you avoid a lot of problems, right? The problem,
responsibility comes in, and
yeah, it's very easy. So it's not complex. It's not, because most people tell, "Wow, forget, this is too complicated. Blockchain, this is highly complex." It's not. It's very easy. And if you see the paper of the definition, the first definition, it's just 7 pages. So more simple than this. If you read 7 pages, you understand how it works. And the only thing that you need to understand, technically speaking, but if you want to understand, and blockchain is just an example, but if you want to understand the concept is just a tool that it's impossible to fake, to duplicate things without authorization. Why? Because everybody's watching. If you do, everybody knows that you did, because it's impossible for you to know who is watching.
To hide something.
Yeah. Because you know how it works. It's all replicated in the network. So I really believe that there are more dolphins than sharks. The thing is that if the dolphins use, like the girl is doing, and other people all over the world are doing, more and more and more engaging, each one at their own terms. For instance, I don't like to be in the streets. I prefer to be here. But we can have our influence in this way, you know. So if you try to create your influence and to do whatever you do at your own terms, if it is consistent with your life, instead of being a burden, it will be something that you do with pleasure.
So I want to switch gears a little bit and going into your company. So Portugal is a major player in the cork industry in the world. What defines your company today?
Well, this company, again, I think it's a very nice story. Corkbrick Europe. It's a very nice story and an example, because it was something that I started just in a discussion with my oldest daughter. She was starting architecture at the day, and we were discussing in the airport, and she was saying, there is nothing to reinvent in the world. And with some jokes I said, well, you know, we have a problem in my house. I have 4 kids, and sometimes I had other of their friends staying at home, and sometimes I had 10 kids sleeping in the floor in the 3rd floor of my house. And so the challenge was always, how can I receive the kids and offer them comfortable conditions, and when they go away, everything comes back to normal. But you know, I'm not good with do-it-yourself, but when I was a kid I was very good with Lego, and the good thing about Lego is that as long as you have imagination, you can create whatever you like. So I launched as a challenge to my daughter, how can we create something like Lego? And the only thing that I said, well, probably you need to use cork. Why? Because cork is a product of nature with characteristics that you cannot copy. And in our case, perfect characteristics, because we wanted something light, sound and temperature insulator, and easy for people to create. And well, making the story short, after 2 years and many drawings, we end up with the 7 pieces that we have today. So essentially, Corkbrick is like Lego, but instead of having only fun, you have fun, but you create economic value, because you can create divisions in your house, you can create beds, you can create furniture, you can create whatever your imagination designates. So with only 7 pieces, each piece is 20 centimeters, less than 1 kilo, everyone can mount and dismount. You don't need tools, you don't need screws, you don't need glues, nothing, and you can build whatever you like in minutes. And if you don't use it anymore, you can transform it in something else. So, but you know, at the end it became a great metaphor, because it's a good way for us to look at nature. But instead of trying to bend nature, we are using a product that by definition is sustainable and natural. Because you know, we don't destroy trees when we harvest cork. Some people in other countries think that you destroy, it's not. So it's fully sustainable. The tree lasts for 250 years. And but it's a good example of how you can look at 2 things. First, the nature and create something that is sustainable to bring home and make your life more comfortable, and make the bridge between play and work the same. So why should we just work and play, and if we can do all together, like a football player, for instance, he's working and playing. Probably we all would like to be in the same situation, although obviously at a high competition the pressure is huge. But if you can do this in a normal way, that's fantastic. So Corkbrick became a fantastic example of how we can, again, leverage from nature, create something that is highly useful. It's not just to make money, it's really useful, and it's adequate to the times, because we now live in a world with permanent change. So you need to have your physical space adequate to that, so you can adapt it to your life. And with another thing, instead of having a consuming problem that the brands by definition makes it last only for 3 years, no, we give you can use it for all your life, and hopefully you'll leave it for your kids. So that's another message.
Sustainability at its best.
Exactly.
Miguel, how do you see the future of the cork industry going, especially in what relates to Portugal?
I have to start by saying, which I think it's a good thing, that I'm an outsider. This is the first business I have in Cork, although by coincidence, only by coincidence, in my family, several generations upwards, they were the first industrials in Cork. This is just a coincidence. But Cork, again, it's a fantastic example and a metaphor. Why? Because it's a natural product, totally sustainable, renewable in most of its value chain, and it's a natural product with very particular characteristics. Like, for instance, you plant an orange tree. An orange tree takes 2 or 3 years to start giving oranges, and other things take 1, 2, 3 years to start. Cork tree, when you plant, you have to wait at least 25 years for the first harvest. So, and this simple aspect tells you 2 things. First, it's a mentality thing. It's a rational. So you need to invest
for long term.
For long term, looking at the generations. That's why always in Portugal we always say that the cork is the business that you create for your grandchildren. Then there's another problem, which is normally it creates lazy grandchildren, because you don't have to do much and it will grow very easy. But this is just another thing. But one of the good things is that you know exactly how much is the production of cork this year, and you have a good perspective of the possible evolution, because it doesn't matter. You can be in the United States. If you they already tried to plant in California, but they quit. They have some plantations, but they couldn't wait so long. So again, I think that first of all, it's a resource that we are not exploring as we could, because if you think twice, although I like very much to drink my wine from a cork top, but if you have to realize that most of the time you take it and then it go, even if you recycle, probably it's 10% that is recycled or less, it's a waste, because it's a normal product. So again, going to Corkbrick is a very good example of how you look to a normal product, but in an application that theoretically can change the life of many people, not just the drinkers of one bottle. Because if you look abstractly to the cork as it is, and now the cork industry, 70% goes to bottling wine, you make, let's say, 4 people for each cork happy, right? Let's say. But if you apply in Corkbrick or in many other things that you can use cork for, due to its own unique characteristics, then you can be changing the life of not only 4 or 5 people, depending on how much do they drink, but you can affect hundreds, thousands, millions of people. So if we look at the cork industry as a pearl, or it's more than gold, because, for instance, gold, if you want to harvest gold, you pollute a lot, you destroy a lot. If you want to harvest cork, you don't destroy anything. even the
it's fully sustainable.
Fully sustainable. Even the impact that it does, if we have more cork forests in Portugal, it's better for the environment, and it's good for Alentejo and all the areas that we have. So I look at cork more than the product itself, because probably there are many other products in nature that we can look the same way, and leverage from it, and creating things that the human being enjoy, use, improve their lives, and you are not destroying anything. Because the problem with oil, with gold, with silver, with a lot of special minerals is that, okay, you benefit from the minerals, but we are not doing the full accountability, because if you account all the negative impacts that someone else will have to pay later on, it's not worth it. So again, if we do this test, when you start something, okay, we created a new technology, but let's make sure that the technology that we are creating is not creating another problem in the future. And that's the kind of mentality that we lost, because we think that we have the capability to solve all the problems. Unfortunately, we don't.
Is there anything Portuguese companies related to the cork industry need to do to improve themselves?
I don't know the cork industry in that regard. I think that it's an area that, at least at the present moment, they are doing very well. What I think is that, in my opinion, as an outsider, we can do more than just the tops for the bottles.
What else can we do?
Corkbrick, and with our example, and there are many things that you see nowadays, furniture, because and some things you really leverage from the unique characteristics of cork, and some other things it's just another me too. So I think that if we look at the unique characteristics of cork and apply cork in those unique characteristics, one was obviously bottling the wine, invented by a French friar some time ago, but there are other applications, or we can think in ways that people can use the corks that they have at home in a more clever way.
Are there still applications not yet found for cork?
I'm sure.
How do you see the industry going there?
And just the last 2 or 3 years, at least since we started Corkbrick, before us there were a lot of people already innovating, and every day you see someone innovating. Some innovations, in my point of view, they are really unique, and because they really leverage from the unique characteristics of cork. Some others it's just another thing to try to replace a material, because again it's like playing football. You can play, if you like, some goalkeepers can be strikers, right? But obviously if he's better at goalkeeping, let's stay in goalkeeping.
Should keep him there.
Let's look for someone to be a striker. And again, when you look at a unique product from nature like cork, let's try to use it as much as we can in a way that we leverage from its unique characteristics.
And the possibilities seem
maybe people are watching this and they start thinking about things that we don't imagine. That's the beauty of it, So I think, and that's the good thing that you can do with communicating with other people. You don't invent nothing, but you put other people's minds working, and they invent something. That's the beauty of it.
So there seems to be a chronic dispute between the United States and China, this trade war lingering. Do you see it affecting your investments in terms of your company or otherwise?
Not yet, but in the short future, if it gets going, yes. And obviously, people forget again history, because in all human history, the East was stronger than the West. So China was always bigger than Europe, and by the way, Portuguese became rich in the 15th and 16th century, essentially because we found a quicker way to reach China through India. And they were in silence for 200 years, but now they are waking up, and obviously they are 1.2 billion people. They work like hell, and they are smart, and they have another problem. They live in an autocratic system, which makes things go faster if the autocratic leader wants to do it in that way. So instead of splitting and creating walls like it looks like it's trendy now. We should do exactly the opposite, because if we don't collaborate, then our relevance in the world probably again our grandchildren will never forgive us, because obviously China will take and then you still have India
with huge growth rates.
Southeast Asia. Only Southeast Asia alone is more than Europe and United States altogether. So with another thing, Europe and United States and even Europe and United States mostly, people forget another basic thing, which is the demographics. We are getting old. So even Portugal, before we get into European Union, we were one of the youngest countries in the Union, and now we are one of the oldest ones. People are not having children. So how can you be sustainable if you don't have a population? Obviously, the other populations that are growing faster, they will take control. So I don't care about control, but I care about making sure that we still ensure that the others have a good life.
And how do you see the future of Europe in this context?
I think that obviously if you compare worldwide, we still are in the place that you have a better living standards, and that you are free, and I don't exchange freedom for almost anything. So I think that if we still learn from all these recent turmoils like Brexit and things like that, and use it to instill collaboration between people and then into countries, because we need to start by people. I always remember making a parenthesis. I always remember watching an interview of Jacques Delors a long time ago, and he was being asked about Erasmus, the program to exchange students, Erasmus, and the journalist was asking, wasn't it a waste of money, because you know that all the students go to the countries but they only have fun and they don't study as much. And then Jacques Delors said, well, even if they don't study anything, the simple fact that they go to other countries, they get friends, they get in love, they marry, and that's what we need. Because the essence of the European Union, or before that the Economic European Union countries community, is peace. And again, we are forgetting the essentials. And if we start talking about money and we forget about the essential, which is peace and health, then what's the point of having money? Then you have a bomb, and what's the point? The money disappeared. Obviously, the guy that made the bomb made a lot of money because he's stupid and don't realize that he could make more money with all the people that were killed in that explosion. But the shark attitude think that it's a better deal to make money with the gun and the bullet than with a living economic being, even if you look at people as economic beings.
The fabric of Europe the business fabric of Europe is mostly out of companies that have people from several countries in it. Do you see that as an advantage to cope with?
And the more mixtures you have, the better, because people don't create myths that this guy has a black shirt, so he must be terrible, because then I know you, and he's a blue shirt, but he's not as terrible as all the blue shirt guys, and it's all back to basics. Because again, if we forget the four essential basics of life, which is peace, health, ecology, and development, human development, what's the point of anything else? Just wasting time. You might think that you win in a very short term, but even in the sharks, they don't win. They make money, but then they cannot have their children moving one way to the other without security. They need to have an army to secure them. Is this a life? When you are in Rio, I like very much Brazil, and I lived in Brazil many years, and I'm 25% Brazil. But even so, one of the things that you realize is that you question who is behind the cells, because you see all the buildings.
What do you mean the cells?
The cells, the gates, the prison. Because if you see the condominiums, big houses, they are all protected, some with people with shotguns around. So what's the point? You know, if you live in a situation like this, what's the point of having millions if you are not safe, if your kid go to
the whole
to
society isn't integrated?
So again, they forget the essentials. The essentials is peace. If you don't have peace, nothing is worth more than peace. And then after you have peace, you can have health. Nothing is worth more than that. And obviously ecology, because otherwise we don't have. There are a lot of. Even yesterday, I was watching a very interesting documentary about 2077. I think it's a Portuguese documentary, but very well done. And you know, with all the money that is being invested, for instance, trying to reach Mars, the best scenario of living standards in Mars is the worst scenario of living in Sahara Desert. So why not we use the same intelligence and challenge, but instead of having a challenge that the best solution, the best outcome is terrible, we can still save this planet, and we can still use parts like this is not a desert, but looks like a desert here around, and create conditions for people to live. Imagine that we can transform the deserts. Why not use the same effort again? Our time on this earth is limited, and you choose to be here or in any other place. So if you choose to be devoting all your life to put the rocket in Mars, okay, it's nice. It's not terrible. But there are so many things that you can use the same intelligence with a more important impact for you and for your kids. So why not use that intelligence here first? And if you solve all the problems on Earth, then you can go somewhere else.
So we're more than 10 years into an upcycle since the financial crisis in 2008. We've been steadily growing. How do you feel? What do you think companies need to do to, if a recession comes in, what do you need to prepare for?
Again, I think that if whatever you do in your company is really useful, you don't have much to be afraid, because someone will buy it, right?
Is there a link there to sustainability?
Sure, because the thing is that you know how many companies, organizations that you see that they are doing things that are completely useless, or that doing the same as all the others. And the way I see is that obviously competition is fantastic, and by the way, if we lose competition, we lose the market economy, and unfortunately nowadays in the major markets we don't have competition, so we don't really live in a market economy like we think we are, because the game is a poker game. So if you have more money, you buy all the others, and when you buy all the others, like Bayer bought Monsanto, you don't need a big drawing to know that you are destroying competition in that market. They were already huge, each one alone. Now it's unbelievable. So we need competition. So I think that when you move from micro-organizations to middle to big organizations, it's great, because when you do that movement, you are increasing efficiencies and you are leveraging from talents of more people. But when you move from big companies to mega companies, then the only objective is to kill competition. And when you kill competition, at the long term, you create a feudal system, so people have to pay, they don't have any other option. But at the long term, what you are losing is you are killing innovation too, because obviously one of the consequences of not having a competition, and it always happens all over history, is that you lose innovation. And if you lose innovation, later on, you cannot sustain in the market anymore. So,
Miguel, please share with us a good piece of advice with young entrepreneurs.
Whatever you do, start thinking how to use your intelligence in the best way. And the best way is solving so many problems that you have all over the world. Even if you want a guide, if you go to the SDGs, which is a good attempt now that was created, the Sustainable Development Goals, there are 17, you have almost a receipt of the general problems that have to solve. But whatever you do, just do a simple test. Well, I have this idea, and do a test. Does this contribute to peace? Yes or no? This is very simple, and you can ask your friends to do the same response. Does this contribute to someone else's life, someone else's health being improved? Yes or no? If I'm doing an hospital, obviously, or something related to health. Does this contribute to a better ecology, a better environment? Yes or no? Does this contribute to human development? If you are creating a school, if you are doing videos, if you are communicating, what's the point of it? Is to develop, to share, to instill collaboration. So if you do a test following those 4 things, and you are sure that, and you must have only a yes or a neutral. If you have a no, stop whatever you do. Because if you are doing something and it's not good for peace, forget it. And you know, one of the big things that I think it should be said in a different way is that a lot of people like to talk about security. But security, you can think security about in 2 ways. When you use the word, peace is always in one way. Always in one way, right? Because in security you can use the excuse of producing a gun to defend yourself, and you create a lot of, like the discussion in the United States about everyone having a gun. But if you talk about peace, then it's very easy. And if you do this simple test when you are creating things, especially when because when you are at a startup stage, it's very easy to change, and you can change.
And when the company is small, it's
really it's small, and you can define the strategy. And obviously, if you change now, 1 or 2 years later, you will be very far away, and then it will be very difficult to do the change. So always do this simple test. Check for peace, health, ecology, and development or education, whatever you like. If you have at least one of those, and no -1, then you move on. And you keep, and then you can do another test. Does it fit in any of the SDGs? Okay, and then you can move on. You know. So instead of just creating something that might be interesting, a nice, fun app, just to do, you know, what's the point? Try to ask, what's the point? Would you like to see your kids using your app every day? Maybe if you do this question. To yourself, you redo whatever you are trying to do in a completely different manner. So we don't need to do anything else.
Miguel, thank you very much for this interview.
You're welcome.